starting with a 4-foot by 7-inch pine board that I got right from Lowe's. And I'm going to take my General Finishes Antique Walnut Gel Stain and a Gen Foam brush, and I'm going to cover the entire board. When working with this gel stain, I recommend wearing some gloves. And you just want to move the gel stain around. Now, I'm not going to need the whole length of the board. So I just went down to about a little over 3 feet, but I didn't want to cut the board yet because I wasn't sure how big I was going to need it. So you can do the front, the sides, and if you want to do the back as well, you can. And once you have it fully applied, you're just going to take your paper towel and you're just going to rub in the gel stain. You want that to dry completely, and then I took my Wise Owl 1-hour enamel clear and I applied a top coat. Now you can also use the Wise Owl varnish. Both are great for the top coats. I got this stencil from Hobby Lobby. It was $2.99 and it was in the Christmas crafts, so you get the 50% off the $2.99. I measured 3 inches from the left side of the board, and I took some painter's tape and just laid it across the board. I placed the large snowflake stencil with the tip up against the painter's tape, and then I just marked the center of the snowflake. And I marked about 7 inches from the center of the snowflake and added my painter's tape. Now I'm using some Wise Owl Snow Owl in a foam dabber, and I'm going to just lightly dab over the large snowflake. Now the key with stenciling is you want a very small amount of paint. If you have too much paint, the paint will bleed underneath your stencil. And then you can just lift that up. Now I laid my painter's tape back down where I had marked off in the previous step. And then I went to the medium-sized snowflake, put the ends of that snowflake up against the painter's tape, found the center of the width of my board, and marked the center of the snowflake. Put more painter's tape to hold the stencil down, and then I repeated the steps to stencil my snowflake onto my board. Now I put each snowflake about 5 inches apart from each other, and it was about 7 inches from the center of each snowflake. And it was about 5 inches between each snowflake, and that's where I was placing my painter's tape. And I just repeated this step until I had a total of 4 snowflakes going across my board. You really just want to make sure the snowflakes are in the center and that they are pretty close to being the same distance apart. Now, when I lifted my stencil here, you could see I got a little bit of paint on the side here. If you had previously did a top coat before placing your stencil down, if you take a baby wipe, it usually wipes right up. And then I just placed my last snowflake stencil on the end here. And then I measured 3 inches from the last snowflake, and that's where I placed the painter's tape and where the end of my board will be. And this ended up being 37 inches long. I took my snowflake stencil in a very small amount of the Snow Owl. I didn't want a full coverage of the stencil, but I just did random snowflakes throughout the entire board. Now, I think this would make a really nice welcome board. I think the snowflakes look really pretty, but we're going to do something else with it. Once I had all of the stencils placed where I wanted them, I lifted my board up off my table here, just putting some wood underneath it. I took my drill gun and I drilled a hole in the center of each of the main snowflakes. And then you just want to remove all of that dust from the drilling. And after I drilled, I put a top coat of the 1-hour enamel on top of everything. I got these knobs from Hobby Lobby. They're $5.99, but if you go when they have their 50% off the knobs, which is every other week, I got these for $3, and they are just like a crystal knob. And I'm going to put them in the center of the 4 snowflakes. They were a little long, so I did have to cut them, so I just marked off about where I would have to cut it. I got these bolt cutters. I got these right from my local hardware store. They are so easy to work with, but I did need 2 hands, so I was not in the camera when I was snipping them. But I just used my bolt cutters to trim the knobs, and then I just screwed those onto my board. And there we go. Now we have the snowflake with the center crystal knob. I think this looks really pretty. And I went and I cut the end of my board where I had the painter's tape, and then I just touched it up with some of the gel stain. And there you go. Now you have this really pretty wall hanging. You can hang some Christmas decorations or even your stockings from it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Paint products can be found on our webpage at chalkitupfancy.com. And don't forget, you can also check out all of our tutorials on our webpage as well. Have a great day.